Breaking news, NASCAR fans. Brad Keselowski confirms that Ryan Preece will be returning to RFK Racing in the number 60 car next season in 2027. Welcome back to another episode of Talkin NASCAR. I'm your host, Andrew. A bit of an instant reaction edition of the show. I just posted an episode not too long ago, maybe I don't know, like a little bit over, maybe a little bit less than an hour ago. I don't know at this point. So, yeah, I've been hard at work already today with making an episode of on this podcast. But what's one more that can be done today? So, anyways, in this show, we're gonna be reacting and breaking down the breaking news uh, that Ryan Preece will be returning to RFK Racing in 2027. So today in Indianapolis, Brad Keselowski was speaking to reporters and confirmed that Ryan Preece will be returning to RFK Racing in the number 60 car, I presume, next season in 2027. So this is a bit of an interesting news, but not all too unexpected. This was probably one of the more, expected, and it was hard to believe that Ryan Preece would be leaving RFK Racing after this season. Preece is liked by Brad Keselowski and that entire RFK organization. Preece has been very successful there over the last 2 seasons in his 2 seasons of being there. And it just seems like a good fit for Preece to be with RFK and Preece or RFK to have Ryan Preece as a driver. And while this season I don't think has been as successful as last year Ryan Preece in his first year with RFK nearly made the playoffs on points, was one of the contenders to make the playoffs. Unfortunately, was not able to make it in. All of RFK was shut out of the playoffs last year. Buescher, Preece, and Keselowski. It was a very down year for Keselowski and Buescher. All of them did not win a race. This year, Buescher has been performing very, very well, is inside the top 10 in points, and has been one of the most consistent drivers in the sport. Meanwhile, Keselowski and Preece, as of late, have struggled mightily, and Preece is ahead of Keselowski in points, and both are still well in the hunt for the chase and have a good chance of making the chase over guys like SVG, Austin Cindric, and Shane Van Gisbergen, Eric Jones, AJ Allmendinger, Ross Chastain, Michael McDowell. They all definitely have good chances of making the chase and should be favorites to make it in. But I will say, in my opinion, I was expecting a lot more out of Ryan Preece this season, given that last year he probably would have made the playoffs or the chase on points if the chase was in use last year. He probably would have been a top 16 driver in the sport on points. Meanwhile, other guys were able to make the playoffs just by winning a race. Meanwhile, they were outside the top 16 in points. So I was expecting a little bit more from Preece this year, expecting that, he was a borderline top 16 driver last year, and it was his first year with the new organization, and that organization just expanded to a third full-time car. So if Preece, with a new team in a brand new third full-time entry with a new crew chief that just formed, if that's the baseline and that's like what they can do in their first year being together, I think, a win is well on the table. I think top 10 in points might be on the table for Preece. The sky's the limit, honestly, for that number 60 team. And this year, they just haven't quite gotten to that point this year. However, it does seem like more of a Ford issue because Ford has struggled across this board the entire year. The outliers being Chris Buescher and Ryan Blaney this year. Meanwhile, Keselowski has struggled. Logano has been really bad this year. Cindric has struggled. And then, of course, Ryan Preece has not been nearly as good as this year. Josh Berry has been really bad. He lost his ride. So I don't know if it's really a Ryan Preece and RFK fault and more so of a Ford problem. But this definitely, I think, in my opinion, is a good move from both the Ryan Preece and RFK perspective. Now, I am a little bit interested to see what Ryan Preece may do after next season because, as far as I'm concerned, this might just be a 1 year contract extension for Ryan Preece. Brad Keselowski, I don't think gave any indications about 2028 and beyond. It just sounds like for 2027, Ryan Preece will be sticking around, which is interesting because Ryan Preece and RFK are in a little bit of a weird situation because next season, Ryan Preece will likely be running that number 60 car as an unchartered entry, much like 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports were doing last year while they were in the lawsuit, meaning that they don't have guaranteed entry into every single race, and they have a significantly reduced race payout in earnings, and again, not a guaranteed entry into racing, which is a huge thing, which is a big risk to sponsors and to the team. They lose money if they don't they don't have guaranteed entry and they don't make the race. And Ryan Preece has been in this situation before. Back in 2020 and 2021, he drove for JTG Doherty Racing, now Hayek Motorsports, in an unchartered car, the number 37 car. And that was an interesting position for him because, again, he didn't have guaranteed entry into the race, significantly reduced race payouts for Ryan Preece. And for him, you don't know if you're going to have a job tomorrow or the next season. And ultimately, in 2022, he didn't have a job. He lost his ride. JTG Doherty Racing ultimately did not keep that car running after that season. The 37 was over, and they only had one full-time charter, which was the 47 of Ricky Stenhouse Jr. And Ryan Preece didn't have a full-time ride in NASCAR, period. He had to sign on to be Stewart-Haas Racing's reserve driver, and he got starts in the Craftsman Truck Series, maybe some in the O'Reilly Series, if I remember correctly, and he drove for Rick Ware Racing in a part-time schedule in the number 15 car with other guys like J.J. Yaley, and I think as well maybe Garrett Smithley was behind the wheel of that car, but Ryan Preece was like the primary driver, if I remember correctly. Then he ultimately got a full-time opportunity with Stewart-Haas Racing after Cole Custer was demoted back to the O'Reilly Series to drive for Stewart-Haas Racing, and he had that full-time ride for 2 seasons, I believe, 2023, 2024. Then last year in 2024, Stewart-Haas Racing closed, folded, sold all its assets, and Preece was once again a free agent. And now it seems like he had a secure, stable job driving for RFK Racing, being the pilot of their full-time car, their third full-time car this season. However, now after this year, RFK Racing is going to have to return the charter that Ryan Preece is using because that is a lease charter from Rick Ware Racing. And Rick Ware Racing, after a lawsuit with Legacy Motor Club, is going to be selling them one of their two charters because Rick Ware Racing owns two. One is being currently used by Cody Ware in that 51 team, while the other second charter is being leased to RFK. That lease runs out after this year. It will be returned to Rick Ware Racing, while Rick Ware Racing sells the charter that Cody Ware is currently using over to Legacy Motor Club so they can expand to 3 full-time teams next season. So I definitely do think that this will be a part of Ryan Preece's contract negotiations going forward. Will he have a stable job? Will he have a chartered entry that, for the most part, won't be likely sold anytime soon? I think that will be something that Ryan Preece is going to be looking at moving forward. And RFK said previously this season that they will run a third car unchartered next season if they have to. That is their plan, to continue running 3 full-time cars, and one of them may be unchartered if they have to. And I already told you the risks that come with having a unchartered full-time entry in the NASCAR Cup Series nowadays. So I definitely will be interested to see if, one, RFK may be able to find another charter to purchase so they can expand to truly 3 full-time teams in the Cup Series, because Keselowski has just said that no one is selling charters right now, and it's you would think that Rick Ware Racing will be willing to sell a charter, being that they just sold their team to TJ Pusher, former owner of Spire Motorsports, who has a history of selling high and just selling out of his NASCAR assets. He did that with Spire. He sold his stake in the team to the new investors of Spire Motorsports. Meanwhile, Rick Ware Racing continues to operate as a backmarker team and basically do nothing out on track. But yeah, that's neither here nor there. And the second thing that I'm going to be interested to see is, moving forward, will RFK be able to retain Ryan Preece if they can't find a third full-time charter and Preece gets another offer from another team that guarantees a secure job and a secure chartered entry that won't be sold anytime soon? And that's probably going to be very appealing to Ryan Preece because his entire career in the Cup Series, he hasn't had job stability ever, pretty much. I mean, 2023 was virtually the only, season that he had job stability because it was his first year with a team, Stewart-Haas Racing, one of the best teams and biggest teams in the NASCAR Cup Series. Then in 2024, he's hearing rumors that the team's going to be sold and folded after the year. And well, yeah, Stewart-Haas Racing completely shuts down and Priest is without a job. Now he goes over to RFK and he seems to have a, secure job over there. What do you know? After 2026, he's not going to have a chartered entry moving forward. JTG, he was driving for an unchartered team. What do you know? A couple years later, that charter is gone and Preece is without a ride and he doesn't have a full-time Cup Series opportunity, even though he definitely should be in contention for one. So those two things will be definitely interesting to watch out for Ryan Preece in his NASCAR Cup Series future and his contract negotiations with RFK Racing and several other teams. But now that we know that Ryan Preece is officially returning to RFK Racing next year, let's just take a look real quick at silly season overall and what rides are still available. So when I look around at silly season, I see there are still 4 full-time cars that are still unconfirmed for next season. However, we do have some concrete rumors about some of them. We've seen recently that the 48 of Alex Bowman just announced that he's going to be returning to Hendrick Motorsports for one more season. We know that Corey Haim's going to hop into the 35 car next year for 2311 Racing. It sounds like Daniel Suarez will be returning to Spire Motorsports next season. We haven't heard much otherwise that Suarez could be leaving or could be replaced next season. So that really only leaves the 4 car of Front Row Motorsports, the, I would say, number 10 of Calling Racing, the number 33 of Richard Childress Racing, and the new third full-time entry for Legacy Motor Club. Now, we definitely do have some concrete rumors surrounding the 4 car for Front Row, just according to a report and an interview this week with Front Row General Manager Jerry Freeze, is that Front Row does want Noah Gragson back, and they are currently probably in active negotiations with Noah about a new contract for next season, and you can expect an official announcement on an agreed contract in a couple of weeks. So that one, probably out of all 3 of these, is the most likely to have a confirmed full-time driver for next season. As for some of the other ones, we know, as of right now, the hot rumor is that Riley Herbst will be joining Legacy Motor Club to pilot that third full-time entry next season. We haven't heard much else of who could be, driving that car next year, and I would say that there are a couple other names that I would maybe consider and keep an eye out for, like Lane Riggs. Now that we hear that Noah Gragson could be returning to Front Row next year, who's to say that he won't have manufacturer and team loyalty to Front Row and Ford, which would be a huge loss for Ford. Chandler Smith as well, even though we're hearing that he could be heading over to RCR in the O'Reilly Series next season. He's a former Toyota prospect. Keep an eye out for him. I would have said Taylor Gray could be an option, but now that he has re-signed with Joe Gibbs Racing in the O'Reilly Series, he's probably off the table for now. William Sawalich definitely could be an option. He's got funding from Starkey and Sound Gear. We don't know his contract status for next season. I would imagine that Joe Gibbs would probably want to keep him around for next season. Brandon Jones, I mean, could be an option, but I realistically don't see it happening. And then maybe Josh Berry as well. Who's to say that, Legacy wouldn't take a flyer on him for 1 year until they can get a concrete long-term solution in that seat full time? Maybe, I don't know, maybe like a Taylor Gray if, he's still got some high upside. Maybe one of the Toyota prospects that's coming up from the ARCA Menard series potentially. Maybe there's another can't miss prospect that Toyota and Legacy really like that they want to put in that third seat. So maybe Josh Berry could be just a bridge guy for 1 or 2 seasons because Berry does have Cup Series experience in recently with the Wood Brothers and Stuart Haas Racing. But it does seem like that Riley Herbst will be the full-time driver next season. That's the hot rumor. We haven't heard much besides that. Maybe even Harrison Burton could be a potential candidate because he does have Cup Series experience, and he is back in the Toyota camp this season with Sam Hunt Racing. And the other car that we do have some solid foundational rumors on is the number 33 car of Richard Childress Racing. The latest rumor is that Austin Hill could be taking over that car full-time next season and move up from the O'Reilly Series. And that's the main thing that's fueling the Chandler Smith and Carson Brown promotions to the O'Reilly Series to drive for RCR in their program in that series. We heard for a little bit that Noah Gragson is a potential candidate because of his relationships with Bass Pro Shops and some of the sponsors that RCR has, and he's a sponsor guy that has good relationships with partners. I don't really know who else would be maybe in consideration for RCR in that 33 car, but who knows what could happen. Maybe Justin Haley, since he has a relationship with RCR from his previous tenure with Calling when they were a Chevrolet team. Maybe, I don't know, maybe Christian Eckes could potentially be a candidate. He's a very well-accomplished truck driver. He has experience in the O'Reilly Series. Maybe, potentially, I'm just throwing his name out there. I don't know. And then the last team is the 10 car of Calling Racing, and we virtually really know nothing about that seat other than that Ty Dillon probably won't be the driver next season because it does sound like that Calling will switch to Ram, or excuse me, not Ram, Dodge next season. And it seems like Dodge will be jumping up to the Cup Series full time next season, and maybe probably the Cup Series full time next few years. So yeah, it does sound like calling is leaning towards that direction. And we know that Ty Dillon is a Chevrolet guy, even though he has driven for Toyota in the past, I believe. So yeah, I think it definitely does sound like that. Ty Dillon probably won't return to that seat next year, and there's several names that could be potentially in that 10 car next year, but we just don't know who calling is considering because, Corey LaJoy could be a guy, Justin Haley could be there, maybe Brendan Queen if they really want to get aggressive, maybe Noah Gregson if he's not going to return to front row and something falls through on that front. Josh Berry could, and maybe guys from the O'Reilly series, maybe like an Anthony Alfredo who has Cup Series experience and some sponsors. Parker Retzlaff, I think, could be a name because he's performed really well in the O'Reilly series. Sammy Smith could be a guy. He's got sponsor support from Pilot, and he's got a win in the O'Reilly series and would be a good foundational piece for Calling Racing. Just so many options that Calling has, and we just don't know who they are considering at all. So it's definitely a little bit more up in the air on that front. But with that all being said, let me know down in the comments what you think about this latest Ryan Preece returning to RFK Racing move. What do you think about it overall? Do you think it's a good move, a bad move? You don't really care about it at all? Just let me know down in the comments. I'd be very interested to hear or see, I guess, or read. I guess since I'm reading the comments, I'm interested to know what you think about this signing. So let me know down in the comments. But I think that'll do it for this episode of Talkin NASCAR. A bit of an instant reaction type of episode. So thank you all so much for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next episode of Talkin NASCAR.